desperately need something to prop this crap up. Hello. What should I do? Is the mic gonna work? Doesn't really matter if you can see me. Well, I'm once again reading. Give me something pretty to look at. I don't know. The ceiling? It's not just my pretty face. Trying to do this so I have proper lighting. Just hold it. Just to be dexterity. My vision as well. Just recap. I think this is just what's so sickening about the way that the military operates in the United States. Because you just expect that, the initial shock of waging a war is awful and terrible. But then people are supposed to just settle in and accept the violence and keep going on each day as if it becomes normalized. But this cannot be normalized anymore. We have very real checks and balances that the rest of the world can and will impose upon us financially, with resources not granted. This is 25 fucking piece of shit years of unbridled and outrageous aggression. The torch has been carried by Democrats and Republicans. It's destroying the United States. $39 trillion in debt. And death, destruction, and murder of other people and their motherland. Their histories that vastly surpass the history of the United States. I'll read from this. This is chapter 1. I've read the prologue and the epilogue of Going to Tehran, Why America Must Accept the Islamic Republic by Flint Lawrence Leverett and Hillary Mann Leverett. They're two. I don't know what their roles were exactly, but they used to work in the U.S. government, and this is their educated takeaway. They co-authored this book together to inform and educate people, state actors, and obviously it's ignored because Benjamin Netanyahu decided that he runs the United States government. Treason. In a surprise assault beginning in September 22nd, 1980, more than half of Saddam Hussein's army poured into the nascent Islamic Republic of Iran, seizing significant chunks of its territory, defying the Iraqi president's expectations of quick victory. The new government in Tehran mounted a tenacious defense of its homeland. Over 8 bloody years, Iran recaptured all of the territory the Iraqis had taken, paying a horrible price in the process. In 1982, the Iraqi forces began using chemical weapons, initially tear gas, on the battlefield. From 1983 on, they unleashed more potent chemical weapons, mainly mustard gas and nerve agents, against Iranian forces, as well as against civilian targets. Iraqi officials later told the United Nations inspectors that their military had used approximately 100,000 munitions filled with chemical weapons against Iran. To raise the cost of resistance even more, in 1984, Iraq made population centers its primary target, opening the so-called War of the Cities with air and missile strikes that continued until the fighting ended in 1988. By then, more than 200,000 Iranians had been killed and almost 400,000 injured. More than 10,000 Iranian victims of Iraqi chemical weapons attacks died. Let me reread that. More than 10,000 Iranian victims of Iraqi chemical weapons attacks died. I can't imagine that that's a nice, pleasant death. To be attacked with chemical weapons. Sounds horrific, actually. 60,000 to 90,000 continue to suffer, in many cases acutely, from the effects of their exposure. Beyond the human cost, the war inflicted extensive damage on Iran's economy and infrastructure. What Iranians to this day call the imposed war and the holy defense had a profound effect on the way they see their country's strategic situation. It drove home how severely the Islamic Republic, as a revolutionary state, is threatened in a dangerous world. For it was not launched solely by a power-mad tyrant seeking more territory. Throughout his war of aggression, Saddam had the financial, logistical, political, and intelligence support of the United States, other Western powers, and the Arab world's richest states. Oh, sound familiar? In September 1987, as the war still raged, Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei, then Iran's president, told the United Nations General Assembly that no revolution is safe from the counter-strikes of the power system dominating our world. But the variety, the depth, and the enormity of the enmities and the wild anger unleashed against us constitutes an exceptionally interesting story. This view remains widely shared by his compatriots. Western students of international affairs have long divided states into two categories: those that accept the formal and informal rules of international interactions and the distribution of power underlying them are said to pursue the status quo foreign policies. Those that do not accept the prevailing international order and want to change it in fundamental ways are deemed to have revisionist or even revolutionary foreign policies. The distinction is problematic. It overlooks the fact that consequential states, including for most of its history, the United States, usually seeks to increase their power relative to others, even as they work within prevailing frameworks of international order. Nevertheless, it continues to influence the way in which Westerners, and especially Americans, think and talk about international relations. For all that, the United States is the product of a revolution. It has generally not liked revolutions in other countries. That's strange. Missing a comma. It's hard for me to read this out loud. For all that, the United States is the product of a revolution. It has generally not liked revolutions in other countries and has certainly not approved of states with what is considered revolutionary foreign policies. Many analysts argue that revolutionary states are, almost by definition, more likely than others to initiate conflict, either because their ideologies compel them to export their revolutions, even in violation of international norms of sovereignty and non-intervention, or because their internally fractious nature creates the need to divert public attention from domestic problems by creating external enemies. Yeah, that would be the United States, no doubt, among other things. In Western discourse, the Islamic Republic is commonly tagged with this image of the revolutionary state as an ideologically driven aggressor. The historical record shows that post-revolutionary Iran has been, and Iranians say, desires to be a fundamentally defensive state. In contrast to other Middle Eastern powers, it has never attacked another state or even threatened to attack one. In fact, since the revolution has grown less and less capable of projecting conventional military force beyond its borders, the Iranians who forced the Shah from his throne in 1979 inherited the powerful U.S. armed military he had built up during the last quarter of a century of his reign. But in the revolution's wake, most of the officers who had commanded the Shah's military either fled or were executed. Washington cut off logistical and technical support immediately after the revolution, and a debilitating measure that was exacerbated by an embargo on military shipments from most other countries during the Iran-Iraq War. Once the war ended, the Iranian government shifted budgetary resources away from the military and toward reconstruction and economic development, reducing the nation's conventional military capability to marginal levels. Today, the United States spends almost 70 times more on defense than Iran does. 70. Saudi Arabia, more than quadruple, and Israel nearly double. Assertions that the Islamic Republic poses an offensive threat are baseless. To borrow a phrase from the U.S. Army, it won't be parking its tanks in anybody's front yard anytime soon. While some revolutionary states have been aggressors, they are not inevitably so. History shows that a revolutionary order can just as easily become the target of an aggression by states that, fearful of a destabilizing contagion, calculate that its internal upheaval makes it more vulnerable to defeat. This was precisely the Islamic Republic's experience. It had to fight off a devastating Iraqi invasion launched less than 18 months after its creation, an invasion prompted by Saddam's confidence that the fledgling state could not defend itself. Coming out of this war, Iranian policymakers understood that a stable region was crucial for post-war reconstruction, for longer-term economic development, and for the growth of the Islamic Republic's regional influence. As one Iranian academic points out, his nation's interests in a stable Middle East is arguably greater than that of the United States. After all, this is Iran's neighborhood. The essence of sound strategic calculation, whether by a diplomat, general, CEO, or coach, is what game theorists and business school professors called interdependent decision. The recognition that determining your best course of action depends in considerable measure on understanding the agendas of your competitors and assessing accurately how they will react to your decisions. Now, let's just recap. Iran has been entirely forthright about what they would do if the United States attacked. Their response to the illegal initiation of the illegal war of aggression against Iran by the United States and Israel on February 28th, 2026, is demonstrated by a heinous attack on a school, killing nearly 170 students, teachers, in the prayer room. Two bombs dropped on a school with intent, and the intentional slaughter of the supreme leader and his family. As one beautiful Iranian woman said in a video after the United States subsequently dropped a bomb on an oil refinery, which rained down toxic gas on the city of Tehran, "You have no honor. You have no honor." The recognition that determining your best course of action depends in considerable measure on understanding the agendas of your competitors and assessing accurately how they will react to your decisions. But American myths badly distort the discussion of Iran's strategic concerns, perceptions, and goals. The irrationality myth, especially, insulates Americans against having to face the real problem with the Islamic Republic, its unwillingness to accede to American domination. As a result, the record of U.S. policy toward Iran since the 1979 revolution reflects an extraordinary and even worsening obtuseness about Iran's national security and foreign policy agenda and its evolving role in the Middle East balance of power. How should Americans understand the Islamic Republic's international behavior? Its national security policies are shaped, like everyone else's, by a mix of factors: material realities, geography, demographics, military and economic capabilities, what political scientists call structure, play a large role. But softer factors, shared identities and aspirations, principled beliefs about right and wrong, subjective assessments of others' states' intentions, which scholars call strategic culture, bear an influence as well. These are other factors embedded in domestic politics, uh, function as a prism through which policy makes Iran and elsewhere interpret the international environment, identify strategy options, and choose among them. Iran's national security strategy cannot be properly understood without grasping the way Iranians see their country and its place in the world. In particular, their sense of being part of a profound political experiment, an Islamic republic, conditions their response to both their history, to lived experience like the Iran-Iraq War. Those responses, in turn, shape their relationship to other actors in their strategic environment. More specifically, they shape the way Iranians perceive these threats emanating from others.